Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Hello and welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything, where we give you the tips, scripts, stories, and steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. I'm so honored to be your host, Dr. Robyn Silverman, child and teen development specialist, author, and speaker, and most importantly, parent of two great kids who give me the opportunity to love, learn, and grow every single day, whether I want to or not. Believe me, I get it. It's not always easy. But as you know by now, we're in this together, and we have some great people helping us along the way. Now, in today's digitally driven world, disaster is only a click away. This is written on the front flap of my next guest's new book, Shame Nation. On this podcast, we've talked about the good and the bad of the digital world. It can be a place of immense resource and positive education. We had a great discussion about learning and leading in the digital world with Eric Sheninger recently. And it can also be the home of aggression and misuse and the ugliness of humanity. We talked about bullying with Carrie Goldman and dignity and social aggression with Rosalind Wiseman. We have a few coming up like Katie Hurley talking about No More Mean Girls and a few others. So as parents, we know about the need for parental controls and the need for safety discussions regarding predators and who's friending somebody on social media. But my next guest brings to light a whole other segment of discussion that happens every day on the internet and can be like a runaway train if you don't catch it before it gets out of control, and that is online shaming. Sue Scheff is a nationally recognized author, parent advocate, and family internet safety advocate. She founded Parents Universal Resources Experts, Inc. She is a contributor for Psychology Today, Huffington Post, Family Online Safety, and many others. She's been featured on 2020, CNN, Fox News, Anderson Cooper, Nightly News with Katie Couric, The Rachel Ray Show, Dr. Phil, and many more. She is out there doing what she does best. Now, Sue Scheff has been in USA Today and LA Times, New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, just to name a few. But you can catch more about Sue Scheff and her new book, Shame Nation, at www.shamenationbook.com, and I encourage you to do so. So much to learn from Sue Scheff, and I'm so glad that she is on the show today. Welcome, Sue, to our show, How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Thank you so much, Robyn. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. I know that we have a little interruption over there every once in a while because you have people working on the house because of Irma. We're so glad that you're able to be with us despite the fact that we are repairing your house after getting so much torn down. So thank you, and thank everybody for making it so you have some internet access to even be with us today.
Right. Well, Irma visited us. She wasn't welcome, but she came anyway. So what are you going to do?
I know. Well, I'm glad that you're getting repaired after that. That was a really tough one. We have such a cool topic today, and one that while we have skirted around in other podcast episodes, this is really getting into your book nature, the Shame Nation. I'd love for you to just tell us, before we get into the meat of the matter, what gets you up in the morning and what made you so interested in this particular topic of online shaming?
Well, what people have to understand is the power of a keystroke can literally take a person down, not only financially if they own a business or a career, but it's emotionally. And what happened to me back in 2003 is that I was nearly destroyed financially, emotionally, and as an adult at 40-something years old, if it did this to me, I can imagine what it does to these young people today. And I look at people such as the Amanda Todds out there, the Audrey Potts, the Tyler Clementes, the Rebecca Sedgwicks. And again, this happened to me at 40-something years old, where adults took slime online and were bullying me, were shaming me. I felt I was at the darkest point of my life. So if that happened to me at 40-something years old, I fully understand being humiliated and shamed to death. So every single day I realize that I need to do something. We need to advocate. We need to help these kids. Now, this was over a decade ago that it happened to me. So again, I was able to stand up and forge forward, knowing as an adult with the maturity of being 40-something years old that it does get better. These young kids, they don't have the maturity to know that. And that's why we see a lot of them, we read these horrible headlines of the teen suicides, they're taking their own lives, they're jumping off bridges. It's so tragic. It's so sad. We need to give them this lifeline that it does get better, because bullying today is magnified by a million because of technology.
There goes Irma right now, and your repair people.
A little bit, and hopefully they'll slide back to the other side of the house in a moment.
Yes, let's allow them to do that.
Sorry about that, everybody. but we have to remember we're blessed, because some people, like in Puerto Rico, were really damaged. So mine's just some new roof up there, and they should be taking a lunch break soon.
Yes, I get it. Well, we appreciate it. And this topic is a really tough one, and we know that we live in a different world than we grew up in. It's a push-button culture, new gadgets, smartphones in everybody's hands. But perhaps you can shed some light on this pressing question. I mean, what happened? Why is shaming so prevalent today, and how can this really impact a child's future?
Well, what we have today is we have 92% of Americans armed with smartphones. Listen to that word, armed with smartphones.
That's amazing.
As if it's a weapon. No one today is afforded the luxury of having an oops moment without risking it going viral. And once it goes viral, you become internet infamous. And that now scars you with embarrassment and becoming, again, humiliated. You're a click away from digital disgrace. And what happens now in today's online world, that old cliche of you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, your first impression today, no doubt, is going to be your online presence. You're looking at career builders that says 70% of businesses today will look at your online profile before they even invite you in for an interview. 54% of them have discounted you before they even call you up.
Right.
When it comes to colleges, 42% of them toss you off the desk before they even consider you for an interview. Now, let me just share something with you. Just because you have a job, it doesn't mean you're safe either, because 54% of companies out there have now employed a third party to monitor your behavior. It's not just your content, it's how you behave online, and they will reprimand and fire you if you breach their guidelines of social media behavior. Today, your offline behavior is just as important as your online behavior. And it's the same thing with colleges. Everybody out there listening, whether you're an educator or a coach or a student, many colleges today have now hired third parties to do background searches on social media of athletes, or even for academic reasons, of students that they want to give pretty hefty scholarship money to look into their social media background. Because again, as far as businesses and colleges, your online presence is going to be a reflection of their brand and their company. That's the importance of not getting shamed online or being shamed, and being able to clean it up and keeping a good online reputation.
So, I mean, this is a very scary thing, and I'm curious about how, if we know that this can happen, how can we prevent online shaming, and what kind of guidelines should we give our kids about that?
Well, 3 of the top tips that I give kids when I speak is, number one, and adults too, by the way, because this goes across the board. One thing about Shame Nation, what I covered is, it's for adults, it's for young people, and it's for teenagers. So it covers all ages, because all ages are struggling with online harassment and online shaming. Number one, be mindful of what you post and what you share. You know, it may be something that's going to give you 15 minutes of gratification or 15 minutes of humor, but it might be a lifetime of humiliation. So Write as if the world is watching, because at the end of the day, they are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember things like the Sony email leaks. You have to think of Ashley Madison leaks. You have to think of the Democratic Party WikiLeaks. What goes online stays online. There is no rewind. The other thing is, everyone out there, we need to learn patience in our life. Everyone is so quick to post. Never post in haste. You have to think about this. Never put a temporary emotion on the permanent internet, especially if you're angry or in a heated debate.
Interesting.
You know, a lot of people think before you post. I say pause, because pause allows you to check in with yourself. Stop before you put that, angry emoji out there. And those emojis, you have to remember, what some people consider cruel what some people consider clever could be cruel to others. Mm-hmm. Everybody misconstrues those emojis. So learn patience. And then really, most importantly, never assume you're among friends online. A lot of, especially kids out there, go for quantity over quality. Make it a habit at least once a month to declutter your friends list, whether it's on your cell phone, take those contacts out, and your friend, declutter them, and especially on Facebook. Facebook has this great feature. It's called the list. Create different lists of your friends and family, your cyber friends, and your cyber acquaintances. This way, if you want to post a private photo of just your friends and family, just post it out there to your friends and family, or a certain comment, because this way you don't risk a cyber acquaintance, lifting it, pasting it someplace else. I mean, we look at what happened to Justine Sacco. We look at what happened to Lindsay Stone, Caitlin Walls. Caitlin Walls, by the way, for those of you listening, was a young girl that posted about herself getting a new job at a daycare center. And she was in her young 20s, and the story is in my book. And she posted something like, "Oh, I finally got a job. I really don't like kids, but at least it's a job." I'm paraphrasing here.
Yes, right.
She had somebody on there that really wasn't a good friend. It was a cyber friend that picked up that post and posted it on a yard sale Facebook message board, who saw it, reported it to the daycare center. She never did get that job. Not only did she get fired before she even started, she was humiliated all over the news in her local town. Shamed, I should say. And you know what? It took her a hard time to get a job after that. So again, declutter your friends list. So they're pretty much three pretty easy tips. Just be mindful of what you share, learn patience, and declutter your friends. And remember, you are who you hang with. So you want to really look at your friends list. It's quality over quantity.
Yeah, I like that. I like all that, especially what you're saying about never assume you're among friends, because you don't know what other people's ulterior motives are, and you may not really know their character, especially if you only know them in glimpses and online. Don't actually know them heart to heart, connection to connection in real life. So I think that's an important thing to ask. We're really all about conversations here, and I we want to know what to say to kids when they're in different situations, and I know that we want to make sure that we're not scaring the bejesus out of kids, because the internet provides wonderful resources, and we want them to be able to use that for education purposes and connecting across the world, but let's say we're giving our kid a smartphone or access to a computer. How do we ensure that they're using it properly? What are some things that we know we need to say to them, whether we're an educator or a parent, to ensure that we're not putting them in a situation where they may shame somebody mistakenly because maybe they didn't think too much, or they're on the receiving end of shame?
Well, the number one thing that you need to do is you have to lead by example. That's the first thing every parent, every educator, every adult needs to understand, every caretaker. If you're before your child has that keypad or has any access to the internet, you better make darn sure that everything you're doing online is responsible and respectable, because their eyes are watching you. That's the first thing. Number one. Number two is, always when your child is given a some type of technical use, it's the password issue. You always have to make sure that they understand that the password is never to be given out to, even if it's their best friend in the whole wide world. Because what happens is a lot of these young kids will give their very best friends their passwords. Within moments, the best friend will gain access when they get in a fight and they start posting on that person's social media page, and shaming starts happening. They start cyberbullying them or whatever. So you talk about password protection. The most important thing is about empathy and kindness. It's, you know what? From generations before, right here till today, that old cliche of if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't say it at all. When in doubt, you always click out. And this is something we have to teach our kids. Before you give them a keypad, and all your conversations, when you give them a keypad should be happening even before you give them that keypad, because with a keypad comes responsibility. It's all about kindness, because everything they put out there has to go around being kind to people, being nice to people. And it's okay to have a debate if you don't agree with someone, but they have to learn how to disagree constructively, not combatively. The other thing you have to understand is, even when you like a post, and this is for college kids and teen kids too, likes are considered endorsements. Hate perpetrates hate. So if there's a mean meme out there, and this is something you tell your young kids, even if you think it's funny, if it's a joke, if it's cruel to somebody, and you just click, well, I just liked it, I didn't say anything. Well, like is considered an endorsement. And these are little things that parents or even teachers forget to tell these kids, because they think, well, I only liked it. Well, only liking it is endorsing it. So these are little things that people forget about to share with their kids. Every move you make on the internet is your way of saying, this is my character. It's a reflection of who you are offline. And that's the way, there's now a blurred line between offline and online. People don't have that distinction. And it's like what happened to me back in 2003, and when I did win the big lawsuit in 2006 for internet defamation. People don't take the time today, whether it's colleges or whether it's businesses or customers or clients, to determine internet fact from internet fiction. If somebody's going to go out there and slime you and say that you are the biggest bully, that you are constantly teasing and mocking, like the ugly kids in school or the heavy kids in school, that college is not going to want you representing them.
Sure.
So it's very important that you represent yourself as an upstander. Parents, teachers, you have to continue teaching the kids how to be upstanders, not to perpetrate hate out there, not to endorse hate, not to forward it. As a matter of fact, if you see someone that's struggling online, but you don't want to say something, private message that person. Say, hey, listen, I got your back. You want to talk? Private message the person, because I know a lot of times it's hard for kids to come out. They don't want the other kids to start mocking on top of them. So private message that person.
That's a great idea. Now, I feel like since we're talking so much about how to ensure that our children aren't shaming others or promoting the shame that is heaped on others, what is the message we need to give our kids if they get a post, a message, or something that is about them and it's shaming? What is the moment one thing to do, and then how do they proceed? Because I could imagine that when you see something online that's shaming to you, you may want to fire back. You want to defend yourself. You want to make sure people know this is not true. Then you get into he said and she said. So this probably isn't constructive. So as somebody who's really been there, done that, and written about it, what would you suggest parents and educators say to kids if they're receiving something or see something that's really a shaming of themselves?
Number one is shaming does not define you. They have to understand it's not their fault and it does not define you. Number one, that's number one, or number two, I don't care what direction they go in, but they have to tell an adult or a friend. I have to tell you, even when I went through this over a decade ago, I kept it to myself in the beginning, and it's almost the worst thing you can do because emotionally it tears you apart. The child, the student needs to tell someone, and whoever that person is, the adult, the teacher, the coach, you have to assure that child it's not their fault and shame does not define you. Number 2 or 3, however you want to label this, because they all sort of encompass themselves. It's okay to be angry. We're all allowed to be angry. I mean, I think a lot of people out there say, oh, don't be mad, don't worry about it, let it roll off your back.
Sure.
It's not that simple. It's okay to be mad. You know what? I'm hurting. I'm mad because I was really angry and I was really mad back then. But I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be mad. It's only words. You know what? These words hurt. But again, they don't define you. You can move on with them and they may stay with you, but they don't define you. And this is what we really need to stress to these kids.
All right. Now, if you see something online that says something negative about you and you're a teenager or an adult, do you do some kind of screen capture? Do you try to erase it? Do you say something? Do you address it? Do you private message the person who wrote it? Like, what is it that you would do in that case to make sure that it doesn't start going along the course that yours took, where it kind of became a roller coaster or a runaway train and you couldn't catch it? So what do you do?
Yeah, a decade ago we didn't have all the information that we have today. Well, the first thing you want to do is, number 1, don't retaliate. Okay. Never engage, never retaliate. And after that is, because everyone always used to say, stop, block, tell, stop, block, tell, stop.
I remember that.
But don't block immediately, because once you block, a lot of times you block all the information. So it's stop, but then document. Okay. Screenshot and document everything. And then report and flag the abuse to the platform. So this is why I was always sort of against the blocking, because once you block everything, you can't see it a lot of times. So then after you report the abuse and you flag it to the platform, then you can go ahead and block the offenders. And of course, do not retaliate. The other thing I've often share, a lot of times your friends and family want to get in there and they want to combat it and they want to engage. Tell your friends and family, if they want to help, they can monitor it for you if more stuff coming out. This way you don't have to keep going back there to it and keep getting emotionally torn down. And ask them to just document it and screenshot it for you, but please don't engage with it. And then most importantly, contact your school or report it to the authorities if necessary, especially if it's like extortion or something.
So now it's not stop, block, and tell, it's stop, dock, and block.
That's great. I didn't think of that. Yes. That you can brand that one. Yeah.
All right, it'll be in my book.
I always took issue with that because I've tried. Once you block, you know how sometimes it's like you can't get back in there to document it and screenshot it anymore.
Right.
You know, for adults out there, again, because my book does cover all ages. Adults, I will tell you, on some social platforms, you can go into the terms of service or code of conduct and see where the offender is violating their codes of conduct.
Sure.
Or it's, harassment or hate speech, and write to the platform and say, hey, very nicely, very diplomatically, and say, hey, this comment is violating your terms of service in accordance to A, B, and C. And you'll find many times the platform will remove that comment. So,
this is a great resource because you sound so, you sound calm and diplomatic, and you've informed yourself. And obviously, if you're quoting their own guidelines, they have to abide by them.
I used that many, many times. Trust me, I've did it a lot. And almost, I would say 8 out of 10 platforms would remove the abusive comment.
Absolutely. I would imagine that people think that they're talking to the wind, when they're complaining about something, or when they're talking to, an entity that's, they don't see this online entity. Oh, this person's violating. But what you're saying is that they do often get back to you and they do often address the issue.
to be honest with you, they don't always get back to you. They just remove it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just be gone, and it will. I mean, and even today, as we're watching Instagram, implementing the filters, for hate speech words, we're watching. You even see Facebook that has now these bullying platforms that teach you to report bullies. I've seen them. I have to tell you, on my Facebook page, not my personal one, but my business one, I've reported people there that have come to troll me or whatever. Mm-hmm. They've removed them. Right. So, I mean, they've even become more proactive. So I think social platforms are, starting to be more taking a more active role in removing some of these harassers, which I like that. And we know Twitter is trying. They have the mute and block feature. So all of them are trying. There's that gray area with free speech, but they are trying.
Yeah. We talked a little bit in the beginning of the podcast about online reputation. And I want to just get into that just a bit more, considering what we've seen among young teens and how it's become so tragic what's happened to them when they internalize the shame. We know that when you talked about online shaming and then reputation among college and jobs, and that the people are seeking out information from your online persona. But what I find really interesting, and I'd love you to comment on, is that online reputation can certainly skew how other people see you. But in my perspective, it also can curb how you see yourself. And your online reputation can then really be a tragic influence on how teens see themselves. And I wonder if you could speak on that a little bit as somebody who experienced it. Do you feel like you're able to simply put it aside and say, that's not me? Or, do you just start to believe it? Or is that some of the problem that we find with teens today?
Well, this is the emotional part of it. And what's happening is it tears down the mental health. That's where the mental health part of it comes in. To what you're saying, there is two sides to reputation management when you're talking about this. Now, you have teens out there that are really struggling with, some of them out there that use all the Photoshop, and they're trying to keep up with the fake personas. There was just an article out there, was it yesterday or the day before, about where teens would rather just go off social media altogether because they're really tired of competing with each other. And that it really is mentally draining. You as a doctor or psychologist can probably speak to that better than I can. Myself, I get it. It is draining. It's mentally exhausting. But let me just share a flip side to all this. As far as online reputation, there's organizations out there like Social Assurity, which if you've never had a podcast with him, you should bring him on, Alan Katzman. And he talks to high schoolers about building up their online reputation, how to, become like an influencer online.
That's great, yes.
Not a humble bragger, by the way. But let's hypothetically say you're into horses and you're out there and you're at horse shows and this is what you've won this weekend. It's how to showcase yourself, per se, to colleges or to employers, and maybe your community service, what you're doing out there in the in your own local community.
Right.
That's what these teens need to look at. Not about showing off, but showcasing. That's the difference. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I just love that. Yes. That's
what we as adults need to do in our own businesses. Like I myself, I'm a Rotarian, so I'm constantly out there, doing things. It's service above self, doing stuff in our community for others, and that's what I always promote on my different types of social media platforms. Teens have to do the same thing. They have to try to step away from this pretense, so to speak, of trying to keep up with the other teams and focus more about what they have to offer for their future. And I think it's basically like exactly what Alan Katzman is doing in Social Assurity. It's something you should look into, Robyn. I bet you your audience would love. We interviewed him in our book, too.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for the recommendation. I think people will love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember I feel like it was like Amy Morin, who I interviewed, who talked about how kids sometimes would just like to get rid of their phones altogether because it can be very tough, this online persona, and it really can wear away at mental strength. So I hear what you're saying, and I love the idea, and I love that tip. I want to showcase that and underscore that building up your reputation and showcasing who you really are, your character, your interests, where you're going with your life, your goals. What a great way to use.
It's your hobbies. And, the other thing, like we say, little things just says, I just read this book and here's my review. Your book reviews.
Oh, nice.
Your movie reviews. That you're culturally rounded. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, that's what schools want to see too. Start your own. What I tell parents, not only parents, but when I go speak is, it's not only about your website. You have to have a blog within your website because that's an extension of your brand. That's an extension of your business card, so to speak, and that stays active. And that's putting all this stuff.
Right, because you want, when people are looking for information about you, you want your online persona to speak volumes about you in the most genuine and positive sense.
Humanizing yourself.
Yes.
That's what we call it, humanizing yourself. And let me just tell you something else. The more you do this kind of positive information about yourself, if you are to get slimed or shamed online, you have so much of this great information about yourself that when people see this little cyber bullet, so to speak, they're going to say, well, you know what? Not everyone's going to love us. It's okay that this one or two people came out here and didn't like her, because you're not going to be in business 15, 25 years and not have one or two people not like you.
Right.
Because you've already spent, and this is why teens need to start early. This is why you and I start. I mean, you start building your platform early so that you're prepared that if someone does come after you, you've got all this fluff. People are more likely not to believe it and or say, yeah, it's okay, because not everyone's going to love Robyn. Not everyone's going to love Sue. That's just life.
That is for sure. And I've also found in the beautiful community that surrounds us that many people will come and say, what in the world are you talking about? They're the one. I don't have to say anything. I mean, these beautiful people, coming and answering a comment when somebody is saying things in a mean way. And usually that person who has sort of said something in a mean way, because of the way that people have, commented on their comment, they've actually said, you know what, I think I said that in not the best way that I could have. They're not getting killed for their comment, but it's actually being illuminated that the way that they put something could actually feel a little shaming or make other people feel like they're not open to what other people are saying. So I like that as well, that when you can form the community, you might not even be the one who has to, say anything in that manner.
Right. Uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly. So what steps would you say we could take as parents and educators to really triumph in this particular area of online shaming? What should we do right now?
Immediately right now, check in with ourselves. How are we portraying ourselves online? Because believe it or not, our kids are watching us. So many parents, teachers, educators, they're not understanding the fact, especially during this political time, political election, our kids were watching how we were reacting. So we have to be conscious of what our comments are saying to other people. The other thing you have to remember too, even if you're just speaking in your kitchen, in your dining room, the kids are listening. It goes in their ears and out on their screens. So you have to be careful of that.
Yes. Wow. What an interesting way of putting it. In their ears and out onto their screens. Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Yeah. The other thing is you can't expect your kids to turn off their screens if you're not turning off your screens. And the biggest times when shaming happens or when your child is going to send off an unflattering, because, again, first of all, everyone has this assumption that trolls or mean people are little, these little old people that sit behind a computer that have nothing better to do but shoot, or like narcissistic or psychopaths that sit behind a keyboard. That's not true. Studies now show, Stanford University studies show that any one of us can wake up on any given day, having a bad day, under the right circumstances, and just, send off a mean tweet or send off a cruel comment. And kids are no different. And kids will pile on, it's been shown over and over again, pile on mean tweets. And when they're tired at night or whatever, kids are connected 24/7. We've seen this, 9 hours a day. Parents, again, need to lead by example. Start shutting down and make sure that the kids are shutting down with them. But again, it's all about leading by example.
Would you say that's your top tip? Is that your top takeaway?
Well, the one more is all about the civility. It's all about empathy, and I think you're a big proponent of this too. This shaming is a human disaster. It was created by humans. It's the human behavior. So it's got to start with us. It's got to start at home to start building this kindness back, cultivating empathy back at home, and then it'll bleed back into our online life. So I really think, it all starts with us.
Yes, and our audience members know, and as you and I both know, Michelle Borba has talked extensively about empathy and has been on our show, and how important it is to start early. It's never too late to start, to help kids gain some perspective, put themselves in somebody else's shoes, and think, we, not me. How can we make a difference in this area? How can we make sure that we're not being a negative influence in life? I tell my kids all the time, on the darkest of days, be the sunshine, be the light, because a lot of people, they've had enough rain in their lives.
Right. And this is what we have, but it starts at home, empathy, cultivating just like what Michelle teaches, that to me, or speaks about, is like the utmost importance, because without civility online, we're nothing.
Right.
And it does. It starts with kindness.
Yes, beautiful.
And in the book, Patrick Ambron reminds us anyone can say anything about anyone online anonymously, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And that's really true. And this is why it's so important that we help our kids to understand that even though there's a screen in between us, we have to understand that our keystrokes are powerful, and they can send out either kindness or they can send out cruelty, and it's up to us. That's the power we have in a keypad, and we have to use it responsibly and respectfully, and so do the adults and the teachers and the coaches, and we have to leading by example is like the number one tip.
Yes, I think so. Leading by example so that our kids know what it means to be an online community member and making sure they're doing the right thing. Well, tell us what the resource of the week is, and where can people get your fabulous book?
The book is available in all online stores from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Indie Books. It's also at Blackstone Audio. It's available on audio. Where else? So that's it. I mean, it's also in the bookstores too. It's on the end caps of Barnes and Noble. So
excellent, and it's called Shame Nation. And who was the person who wrote your foreword? We didn't even talk about that.
Love this. Yes, I love this. It was Monica Lewinsky wrote the foreword. And it's a big question I get all the time is how did you get Monica Lewinsky to write your foreword? Back in 2015, when I saw her TED Talk, Price of Shame, which was
so good,
wasn't it?
So good.
Everybody needs to watch that TED Talk if they haven't watched that TED Talk. I realized that, I need to have her write this foreword, and I contacted her, and she said, send me the manuscript. And once she read the manuscript, she just really loved it, and she loved it so much she wanted to be more part of the book. So she not only wrote the foreword, she's also in chapter 7. If anyone, once you get the book, shamenationbook.com, you can order it on there. They have all the different bookstores on there. You'll see she's also in chapter 7, and it went from there. And she's a huge advocate for anti-bullying, And she's a wonderful, nice, kind person. Leader of civility online. Yeah, that's how it happened.
So interesting, and I certainly would encourage people to see her TED Talk because she puts online shaming in such a personal perspective, and a lot of people obviously remember Monica Lewinsky in one very distinct way, and this TED Talk humanizes her, and your book continues to humanize her, and it makes it so you can really put a face to this particular problem and understand how the runaway train could really get right off the track.
Right. Yeah, it is. I want to say it's like almost the irony of the whole thing because so many people know her from one story.
Yes.
And I don't think people know like the real Monica Lewinsky. And to me, this is the real Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just a champion to people. I mean, she's part of like the Tyler Clemente and the Be Strong and so many other organizations out there. And she's an international speaker too for cyberbullying.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really looking forward to getting that information in other people's hands. So everybody, please take a look at Shame Nation and look at that TED Talk, and let's get this conversation started. Sue Scheff, I just want to thank you for joining us today. You've provided us with such important and really interesting information. I really love so many things that you said about how your behavior online can help define your character, that we revised the stop, block, and tell to stop, dock, and then block.
You did that,
yeah. And, well, you inspired me. And, and that we need to teach kids not just how to deal with online shaming, but how to showcase the positive side of themselves so that they are building up an online reputation that they truly be proud of. So thank you so much for being on our show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, everybody, I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. Let's discuss them. There's so much to discuss here. You can come up on Facebook. We can go to Dr. Robyn Silverman page, or we can talk about it on drrobynsilverman.com. We are going to be having great conversations on twitter.com/Dr. Robyn. Sue is on there with us, and it's going to be really exciting conversations. And if you've loved this podcast like I did, and I know so many of you have told me how all these different experts have helped you have great conversations, I hope you'll go up to iTunes and rate and review it so that other people can learn about these incredible resources, these tips, these scripts that these amazing experts have provided to us in such a personal way and such a kind way so that we can use them in our own homes and help our kids. I truly appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today. My fellow parents, leaders, and educators, thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com. So many great podcasts and show notes up there too. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even on the days where you fall short, you've got this. I know some of you are thinking, I haven't had these conversations yet, or I gave my child an iPad or an iPhone and I haven't had these conversations. Don't worry so much about what you didn't do. Parenting is the ultimate do-over. You can start today. I'm right there with you. We make all kinds of mistakes together. And as there's moments when we all doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet sanity, please know you're 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.